Do you dream of fairies and princesses? Then you've come to the right place. Welcome to Disney Coast to Coast.
Hey folks, and welcome to Disney Coast to Coast, the ultimate unofficial Disney fan podcast. I'm Jeff DePaoli, and today on the show, I interview Matt Schiavone, who began working in the animation industry at the young age of 18 years old. Matt developed quite an impressive resume at a very young age, but then life drastically changed for him. Matt is one of the first people I ever worked with after moving to Los Angeles, but you'll probably be quite surprised to hear where we were working. People working in the entertainment industry tend to have a lot of ups and downs throughout their careers, but their resilience and stick-to-itivity is often quite impressive. I wanted to speak with Matt on the show because I think it's important for aspiring artists to hear about the good times along with the bad, because working in this industry means you need a tremendous and often insane amount of passion for your work. Otherwise, it'll be a painful journey for you. The work needs to satisfy you, or else you simply won't make it. I also wanted to have this discussion at this time because, as you all know, 2020 has been a tough year for everyone, some more than others. But what have we all been doing while sitting at home? A lot of us have been consuming far more entertainment than we might normally. Streaming entertainment is at an all-time high. I mention this because I feel that a lot of people look at entertainers and creators as performing an unimportant or frivolous role in life. Well, just imagine if you didn't have entertainment on your screens right now. This difficult time would most likely be even more difficult and certainly a lot more boring. After listening to this episode, I hope that if you don't already, you'll truly appreciate the struggle that artists go through to ensure that you have the ability to enjoy some relief from your everyday life. Because right now, the entertainment industry has been hit tremendously hard, and it's going to take years for it to recover. A lot of actors, artists, musicians, and all other roles in the entertainment industry have been truly wiped out at this point. In any case, I'll get to my conversation with Matt right after this. If you want to work in the animation industry like my guest Matt, the first thing you need to do is study. And a great way to study is by learning from people who did your craft before you. Now, today's guest, Matt, was lucky enough to have Disney legend Ward Kimball as his neighbor. But even though you're not that lucky, you can learn about Ward Kimball in the audiobook, The Life and Times of Ward Kimball. And guess what? You can get that audiobook for free over at audibletrial.com/DCTC. That's right, that title, along with any other you can choose from, is entirely free just for visiting audibletrial.com/DCTC. So go and claim your free audiobook today at audibletrial.com/DCTC.
Prepare for some insight. You've tuned in to an exclusive DCTC interview.
Hello, Matt, and welcome to Disney Coast to Coast. How you doing, sir?
Doing fantastic. How you doing?
I'm doing fine. Our relationship goes way back to the good old Warner Brothers studio tour days. And, I really wanted to have you on the show because long after that job together, we had a conversation and I was blown away by your journey and your story. And I just really feel like it's one that people should hear because, we all hear the glitz and the glamour of Hollywood, right? But this industry is insane and there's so many ups and downs. And honestly, like yours has that in some unbelievable ways. So thank you for coming on and sharing that. I'm sure some of it's probably a bit painful to relive. So thank you for coming on and talking to us about it.
Yes, it is, and absolutely.
Fantastic. Well, we're gonna start with you at 18 years old. So you were born, all this stuff happened. Now you're 18 because at 18 years old, you wanted a job in the entertainment industry. Most specifically, animation was your interest, right?
Right, absolutely. And I was in art school. I was going to Otis Parsons College of Art and Design at the time.
Okay, so 18. tell me about that first gig, or I actually don't know. Did you have to drop out of school to take this job, or were you finished up?
I started while I was in school. I started my first gig at Classics Entertainment is the name of the company.
Okay, and when you were at Classics, you worked on...
So the Michigan J. Frog commercial spots in between Dawson's Creek and Felicity.
Yeah.
Back in the 90s.
You're talking my language now. I love it. That was good stuff. So you worked on that classic WB character, Michigan J. Frog. And the thing that's so interesting is you have kind of touched all the different studios, but it all seems to come back or keep heading toward Disney for you. And it's wild. So you were doing the Michigan J. Frog stuff, which was, anybody listening who didn't grow up during that time, the WB was the network before it was called the CW. And it was way better and had shows like Felicity, which was amazing, which I still have the whole DVD set. I love it. And and you did those Michigan J. Frog bumpers, essentially. He was like kind of the host of the block. And
And I did 12 specifically. I did 12 spots.
You want to know something funny, actually? I'd forgotten about this till this very moment. I was recently, and by recently I mean probably a year and a half, 2 years ago, driving around the Warner Brothers ranch lot on a golf cart, and I came across the giant steel WB logo that I am 99% sure was like that lit up logo that they used in those advertisements. And I was just like, whoa, cool.
From working on the ranch and seeing that myself and asking to confirm that is actually it.
That's awesome. Like, honestly, that was a big deal for me back when I was in high school. Like, that WB stuff was great.
Do you remember who were the famous actors that they would show in front of it? Remember, there's always someone like cool standing in front of it.
Oh, yeah, it would depend on what show was up next. So it would be the cast of each of the individual shows, but yeah. But in any case, so that's at Classic Entertainment, and at Classic, you're not only working on that WB stuff. This is when your first, I believe, professional Disney gig shows up, right?
So at Classic, so it was the Hunchback of Notre Dame CD-ROM.
Now, for people who don't know what CD-ROMs are, those were essentially compact discs that you would put in your computer back when computers would actually take discs, because I know even that's rare these days. But yeah, this would be like, a lot of special features and stuff, and little games, like promotional stuff for the movie, right?
And I think, and it was more like a storybook kind of thing, too. And it was before the film came out, so it was kind of like, whoa. I was such a big Disney fan already. I was like, oh my goodness. And I was like, it was so awesome to already see the characters kind of ahead of time. Yeah,
Hunchback of Notre Dame is one of the unsung heroes in that Disney collection. I love the Hunchback of Notre Dame. I think it's wonderful. And that's so cool. So that was like the first project you're working on. So, with Michigan J. Frog, you were doing what exactly? Were you ink and paint for that or what?
So yeah, it was digital ink and paint.
Digital ink and paint. And then what were you doing with Hunchback? Similar, same
thing. But what was exciting about, with the Michigan J. Frog drawings, they would come in, and it was from Chuck Jones Productions. And he was still alive at the time, and he was supervising. But just to flip through this actual animation was absolutely amazing. And then seeing the tightened down cleanups that would come in for the Hunchback CD-ROM, I was just as excited for that because I'm a huge James Baxter fan already, and I knew James Baxter was animated on Quasimodo, and I was already so excited for that film.
Yeah, now one thing that people listening will notice throughout your journey and your story is you worked on a lot of Disney projects, and although you did officially work for Disney at certain points, in a case like this, you were working for a company called Classic Entertainment. So Disney is outsourcing this sort of stuff to Classic Entertainment to have it finished and completed. And this is something that I think a lot of people don't realize about the Walt Disney Company, because let's face it, it's one of the biggest companies in the world. If they wanted, they could have everything under their umbrella. But in the world we live in, everybody's always looking for the least expensive way to do something, and sometimes it's outsourcing. So something like a Hunchback of Notre Dame CD-ROM, I would expect a division at the Walt Disney Company to be working on. But here you are, your first Disney gig is at Classic Entertainment. Kind of strange.
And that also includes with Disney Imagineering, also freelances a lot out.
Oh, yeah. I remember for a long time, I was like, the Walt Disney Imagineering is amazing. Their audio animatronics are incredible. And then I realized it's oh gosh, I'm blanking. Garner Holt Productions, who builds all of those amazing animatronics that we know and love today. And it's essentially Disney footing the bill. And of course, they're working in collaboration with the Imagineers. But yes, outsourcing is a huge thing, not only at the Walt Disney Company, at every company. But I think people are more surprised by it with Disney. At least I know I was. I don't know. Maybe that
and also, and to give you like a time frame too, at this time when I was working there, and I was wearing my Princess Leia shirt, and this is when they're releasing the special edition of Star Wars, and looking out the window,
and they didn't own it at that point. Disney did not own it.
They did not own it yet. No, they did not own it. And looking out the building on Hollywood Boulevard, where I can see El Capitan, with giant lines and with people lining up for a Toy Story, which was just changing our industry right in front of our eyes. Right.
Yeah, because everybody was working on hand-drawn stuff and using some computer tools for that hand-drawn animation. But yeah, Toy Story was a game changer. And so you're literally looking out the window being like, all right. And so when you look out the window and see that at the El Cap across the street, does that intimidate you? Does it scare you? Does it excite you? Do you think, oh no, I'm unemployable now? What are you thinking?
That made me very excited. I was very excited. I was like keeping my eye on Pixar and what they were doing. And I knew they came from ILM. Like I'm a hardcore animation nerd. And so I already knew all about them, what they were doing. And I was so excited. And I really truly believe that CG animated films and traditional animated films like Hunchback at that time can coexist with each other. Yeah. But the execs did not feel the same.
Yeah. It's so interesting because I always liken it to like black and white movies where, people of a certain age will see a black and white film and be like, oh, it's not good. It's just old. And sometimes I feel like that's how kids feel about 2D animation, even though I feel like it's still heavily represented on TV. Like even if it's all done on a computer, it still looks two-dimensional. It's not like the CG animated films we see in a theater. And sometimes I feel like that might be the situation. I don't know. I could be entirely wrong. I'm not 10 years old. But I do feel like that's the case, even though I would love to see it coexist like you're talking about. And I think a lot of animators would. I think, correct me, maybe you know this, I think Andreas Deja says, of course he did Scar, and I believe he did Scar and Gaston, a lot of great Disney villains. Right. And he likens the computer animation to puppetry more than animation.
Right. Which and I get it.
I find that fascinating and obviously heartbreaking for somebody whose love is picking up a pencil and drawing.
Right, because from being there and seeing these guys, like, maybe I'm jumping the gun, but just, smelling the pencil sharpeners, the lead in the air, which is dangerous, and the papers flipping, back and forth, flipping, and everyone just putting their, like, it was just so much more passionate. Like, you're more passionate about flipping your drawings, your animation, and, and you're animating, you're putting your whole body into it, your whole passion. Like, you'd be exhausted by the end of the day because you're just putting all of you into it, and it's so exciting. And then the flip side to that, CG, I agree with Andreas I agree with them because it is moving a stop motion puppet. It's kind of like moving a stop motion puppet where it's the CG, it's the CG model that's rigged and you are pretty much posing it. And a lot of guys even will draw their keyframes out and then put it in the background of their camera in Maya and then match that plus their reference that they act out.
So you had, a nice start at classics and then you head over to, is it US Animation?
Yes.
Okay. Now, some of the projects you worked on here, start listing them because these are some, once again, outsourced Disney stuff. Here we go.
Right, which is crazy. US Animation, which for you animation nerds out there who work on Toon Boom, it was before they became Toon Boom. So US Animation was, while they're writing their software, which was vectorized, pretty much like vectorized software, they also had a production side to it. And so we were doing Disney Jungle Cubs. I worked on the Quack Pack title sequence, and then a Mighty Ducks title sequence, and Quack Pack, Jungle Cubs.
Nightmare Ned, was that?
Yeah, Nightmare Ned, which was Disney Interactive, and it had like a Tim Burton feel to it, and had a blast doing that. And then also even to like Polly Pocket commercials, which were exciting because Dale Bayer was freelancing on those, and Dale Bayer is a famous old Disney animator, and it was just amazing to just even help him and assist him and clean some stuff up with him. And
he worked on Robin Hood, right?
Yeah, he was a Robin Hood animator and Fox and Hound.
Yeah, and so I mean, I love that you touched the Disney afternoon essentially when shows like Quack Pack and I think you said the Mighty Ducks. Like that's that. I just did an episode about the Disney afternoon, and you were kind of working on those later TV shows from that period.
And we had a top secret Disney Sega project come in. So this was before we had to sign all these different NDAs because it was coming from Disney Feature, and we were the first ones to even see all the model sheets. It was so exciting, and it was a Disney Hercules game for Sega.
Oh, cool. Had the movie come out at that point?
No.
Okay.
And this was the same time I was working on when we were also helping Warner Brothers get out of a jam, if you will, with finishing the third act of Space Jam.
Okay, so then that was all under that U.S. Animation, eventually Toon Boom company. So then you're working on Space Jam for Warner Brothers Studios. Okay, so then how do you make that leap from U.S. Animation? Because your next gig is with actual Disney, not outsourced.
And also keeping it Disney related. And also at that same time, we had for the 101 Dalmatians live action with Glenn Close.
Oh, cool.
There's a scene where he's working on a CD-ROM and there's a little dog catcher. Right?
Yes.
I painted that.
That's hilarious. That's amazing. I didn't know that. Yeah, so actually, before we move on to the Disney stuff, what exactly were you doing on shows like Quack Pack and Jungle Cubs? Were you still painting?
So this was digital ink and paint / sometimes kind of like re-cleaning things up so they can scan better. And then once we...
Like with a pencil?
With a pencil, with an actual pencil.
Yeah. Wow. Okay.
And then once they were in the system, I would also set up the color models. So I do kind of the keys for each scene. So then I would hand it down to my team, and then they would take, my color models and then finish out that level of animation.
Okay, cool. So then, you keep building your resume, working for these amazing companies. You do end up at Disney, and this is kind of like the moment for you, right?
Yes, absolutely. I was 19 years old. And
19, ladies and gentlemen, 19 years old. Already done the projects he mentioned and about to work on
Disney's Hercules.
So, and you had already done the video game.
Right. So I kind of already was familiar with the characters already, but Disney feature animation was now on with the big boys, and I was like so excited. I was so excited. I was like, I made it. This has been my dream since I was 5 years old to work for, Walt Disney.
Okay, so not only do you get that amazing gig, but you're also working in the new, at the time, animation building, right?
Correct. It was brand spanking new Disney feature animation building. It was called the Southside Building, and that's the hat building that you see off the 134 freeway. Yeah,
so this is, for folks who may not know, the original animation building, or, when Walt was around, was on the main studio lot. Then, if you've ever seen Waking Sleeping Beauty, there's that story of how they kind of got kicked off the lot and they were in trailers in Glendale. So this was basically the return to Burbank, out of the trailers, back into this glorious, beautiful new facility in, what is now called the Roy E. Disney Animation Building with the Sorcerer Hat. So, I mean, not only do you get to work for this amazing company, but, you get to go in this brand spanking new building, which is awesome. I just watched the documentary Howard about Howard Ashman. And it was funny because they were talking about him coming to work on all these animated films, and he was just disappointed working out of trailers in Glendale. And it's just it's true. It's once again, it's Disney, and this is where I'm working. So you're actually working in a building that feels appropriate. I was walking into that building and seeing the morning sunlight. Oh my goodness, and a Firehouse 5+2 songs, on in the background, and you see the big logo was the original logo of Mickey Mouse on the animation desk, drawing. And that's what you say in the lobby and say hi to the security officer and walk in. You can still smell the brand new paint and then all the new furniture, which was Lion King themed with zebra prints and leopard prints. Because that essentially is what gave him a ton of money to build that thing. Right, and Katzenberg loved that. He loved that building. And then, unfortunately, a lot of the artists didn't quite feel the same way. Really? What was it like? It wasn't good for work or what? Because honestly, I've spent a lot of time in there, and I love that building. And I scooter through it and have a blast doing that. What didn't they like? Yeah, me coming in and, 19 years old, bright-eyed, loving it, huge animation fan, I loved the building. I loved the building. I totally loved the building. I didn't understand why
some of the old timers didn't like it.
I mean, especially since they were coming out of trailers. You'd think they'd be like, yes,
right.
please.
You think they'd be more happy, right? But I think also too, at that time too is when they were kind of like the rock star mentality was kind of coming into, and they were starting to get paid whatever they wanted to stay, because a lot of them were getting offers to leave.
Yeah. Yeah, that was a weird, wild time for Walt Disney animators. I mean, rock star, like millions of dollars to stick around. And
especially if you worked on Beauty and the Beast, or if you worked on Aladdin, like, you know what I mean? Yeah, or Little Mermaid.
So you were 19 making millions of dollars? Oh my God.
Isn't that amazing?
No, if only, right?
Yeah, no, it was not, yeah.
But, I mean, a pretty cool thing is you were 19 it made you the second youngest person to ever work at Walt Disney Animation. Isn't that correct?
Yeah, that's what I'm told. We should probably double check those facts. But
who beat you? Who beat you?
I think at the time, and you know what's funny? I heard this at the time in the 90s, and I never double checked this to make sure that this is actually true. But at the time in the 90s, they're saying it was this guy Kevin. I didn't even know his last name, but I saw his portfolio, and it was amazing. And this boy can draw like quadrupeds like nobody's business, and that's why he got onto Lion King. And he was 18, like out of high school. There was a rumor like he didn't even go to college.
Crazy fun stuff. So you're 19, you're working in the Walt Disney Animation building. What kind of work are you doing on Hercules?
So it was the ink and paint department.
Okay.
And they were just wrapping up. They just wrapped up on the Hunchback feature, and we're in full swing on Hercules. And also Mulan was in character design at the time, and that was being done in Florida. And they were doing some concept art. I remember seeing John Watkiss's concept art for Tarzan in the hallways, which was phenomenal. And Kingdom of the Sun, which later became Emperor's New Groove.
Oh.
That artwork was all over the place. And Sting was going to do the soundtrack for that, so we're all excited. And then Phil Collins was going to do, we were hearing rumors that Phil Collins was going to do Tarzan, which I was excited about.
Did you ever watch The Sweatbox, that documentary that never got released about the making of Emperor's New Groove?
I've only heard of it.
Oh, I need to get it to you. You've never seen it?
No, I never seen it.
Oh, it's interesting. I got to get that to you. It's really good. But yeah, so I mean, talk about a dream.
I was there.
You did live it. Now, what were you were telling me about kind of your work shift that you did, because this is something that I know doesn't, at least I believe, does not exist today within the company. But what were the kind of hours you were working?
So back then, and in the ink and paint department specifically, there was a day shift, and then there was a swing shift. So I would come in and start my shift at 2 p.m. and work until like 11 p.m. and then do overtime until like 2 or 3 in the morning. Okay.
So yeah, I'm pretty sure it doesn't work that way anymore. I'm pretty sure people just work a lot of overtime and have late nights, but I don't think there's people there 24/7 anymore.
No.
You keep saying ink and paint, and I'm curious, like when you're talking about some of these newer films, it's all digital ink and paint, I assume? Or was there ever a paintbrush?
So this is all digital ink and paint, and the first film they started implementing like a sequence of digital ink and paint was on Little Mermaid.
Okay, so let me ask you a very naive question, because I mean, I think a layman can look at this and say, okay, so there's like an outline, a pencil sketch that becomes an outline. And when you say ink and paint, like, isn't it just like select red, click on Ariel's hair, done? Like, so what's the artistic ability that's involved in that digitally?
So that would be, the paint part, but not the ink part. So for example, back in the days, and what was amazing was that these lovely little grandmothers that I worked with, as soon as I got in there, a lot of them would ask me what my first film was, and I was proud to say, oh, Space Jam, and a little bit of 101 Dalmatians. And they're like, what was yours? And she was like, Song of the South. And that was Carmen Sanders. So there's a lot of veterans there, and they came from the days of, you painted on a piece of celluloid, and you would ink the outline on the front, and then on the back you would float the paint on.
I think that's what people think when you hear ink and paint. Like, I think that's the first visual. So that's why I'm curious, what does it really mean in the computer?
So digitally they were able to, so now Well, okay, so there's even a science to this, so, which was crazy because I also, when I had the chance to hang out with Ward Kimball, one of the old nine men of Disney, his wife, Betty, was head of the color model department for Snow White. And what was pretty fascinating was when, because of the 12, on the multiplane camera that Ub Iwerks invented, and shooting the camera through all of the glass planes and celluloid, they would have to change the value of each color to make it look like, to keep Snow White's dress looking yellow consistently throughout the film, it had to be a different type of yellow.
Oh, wow.
They shot through all this glass. Is insane. But that was 12 layers. So now fast forward to, at this time in the 90s, in 1997, with Hercules, so Pixar actually developed a software called CAPS. And it was intended for a lot of the veteran ink and painters to be able to very easily switch to the computer. And they even kept their cute little gloves that they wore for inking and painting. And they would have them on the Wacom tablets. But it was set up where you'd have your color model up on one screen where you can pick your color from in your inks, and then you can ink and paint. But digitally, you weren't confined to just the 12 layers anymore, because it was just like, Snow White had 12 levels of animation, right? With the last one being the background. Well, now we were able to do some crazy camera moves and you can have 100 different layers on there, like in Photoshop, and then composite them all differently to create different effects.
Wow. So how did the people transition? Like, did the older folks, they make it easy enough for them to transition, or was that a lot of retirement?
I think at first people were, they didn't want, at first change was a little tough, but they also, I think, enjoyed the money they were getting to as well. So they very easily transferred over, but they made it super easy for them. And it wasn't all just one film digitally. It was, but I think Little Mermaid was the first one to have like one sequence, I believe, where they started testing it out and then doing more and more until eventually it became the whole film.
Okay. Alrighty, so you have that awesome time at Walt Disney Animation Studios. About how long were you there?
So I was there on Hercules, and then I did a little bit of Mulan, just a little bit. I painted on Mushu, and Mulan when she was behind her horse when she got out of the water, and the general, and a little bit of her dad. And then I got to do a test for Tarzan. It was baby Tarzan. Well, it was child Tarzan with testing the dappled lighting effects on him. So I got to paint those. And then the Netflix of the day, DreamWorks Animation, was starting to poach folks and entice people to go over, including one of my heroes, James Baxter. And and then people started going over to DreamWorks Feature Animation. There was a big buzz about them creating, their studio with Steven Spielberg. And Jeffrey also wanting to make
Jeffrey Katzenberg, we should mention. So just in case listeners don't know, Jeffrey Katzenberg, who was the head of Walt Disney Animation Studios, ended up leaving and creating DreamWorks Animation with Steven Spielberg and David Geffen. So that's why he was able to grab so many people from Walt Disney Animation and convince them to come over to DreamWorks. And apparently, they did a very good job convincing you.
Right. Yeah, right. Exactly. But before I left to go on that magical journey, there was times at Disney Feature that I'd be walking around late at night and see they pulled out original Sleeping Beauty storyboards.
I mean, that's one of the most beautiful animated films.
And I didn't touch them, but I saw them, and I was shaking. Like, this is amazing. Like, you can feel the magic for realsies,
Yeah, that's crazy. Okay, so you go to DreamWorks. You follow James Baxter, essentially. Somebody you look
so then
up to.
James Baxter and a lot of folks, and even Kathy Zielinski, and a lot of animators and a lot of folks all left to go work at DreamWorks Feature Animation to work on their Snow White, essentially, which was Prince of Egypt.
Which really is one of the absolute best DreamWorks animated films. I love Prince of Egypt. There's not a ton of animated movies outside of Disney that I rave about, but Prince of Egypt is one of them. It's stunning.
Well, thank you. And it really warms my heart to hear that, and when people say that, because a lot of us work from Disney, and we put our hearts and souls and blood and sweat into that film, and working 2 shifts and working golden hour, which is like making 3 times as much as you normally make per hour. It was insane. just to make this film. And boy, it was so heartbreaking when it opened up against You've Got Mail.
Oh.
And we actually really thought it was going to do well at the box
That's
office.
a different audience demographic, though. I was actually just about to ask you, because I don't remember back when it opened whether or not it was a hit or not. So it flopped.
Yeah, flopped. You've Got Mail just destroyed it. You've Got Mail was number one at the box office.
The Meg Ryan and Tom Hanks movie?
You've Got Mail. Mm-hmm.
All right.
And then Prince of Egypt came in number five. It was fifth.
Five?
Box office, yeah.
Ooh.
So that was considered a failure, and it was sad because on that Monday, that Monday, we're sitting there having our free lunch, and we see people walking out with boxes.
Oh, no.
Yeah, so it already started, and they just started letting people go, and it's insane.
Wow. So was that the last one you worked with with DreamWorks at that time, or did you leave?
I was on Prince of Egypt, and then I was on a little bit of El Dorado for like a minute, and then I ended up leaving to go, to another studio.
To Virtual Magic?
Virtual Magic, which was, so U.S. Animation combined with this company in Canada and merged with them and became Virtual Magic in Burbank, which is right across from the old Animation Union.
And once again, you end up on a Disney project, once again outsourced.
Yes, the Tigger movie.
So you're working on the Tigger movie, once again, another Disney project, not being outsourced. And what are you doing on this film over at Virtual Magic?
So Virtual Magic was, I was ink and painting on the Tigger movie.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. And setting up color models. And there's also like other projects there too at the time as well. And including there's a famous Super Bowl Superman Seinfeld commercial with Jerry Seinfeld.
Of course, yeah.
So I was like, I'm a Superman fan. I want the Superman show. Like they're like, okay, here, because it was a pretty small commercial. It was a very small spot. So I got to paint all of Superman when he's talking to Jerry.
That's really cool, actually. That's fun. So you're working there, and the industry is just changing, right?
Right. So now we're starting to see the changes. More and more people are losing their jobs, and it's harder to find jobs, and like a lot of cleanup jobs are starting not to exist anymore. A lot of kind of like rough in-betweener jobs are not existing anymore, and assistants and like key assistant jobs. And so things are starting to shrink. It's like, what's going on?
This is where the story starts to get really sad, folks. So grab the Kleenex, and I'm going to force Matt to talk about some heartbreaking stuff real quickly. Because unfortunately, you're among that group of people who lose their job. I mean, and let's look back real quickly from classic entertainment to U.S. Animation, working on WB movies, to Walt Disney Animation Studios, to DreamWorks, to Virtual Magic, working on more Disney movies. You're how old at this point then? Early 20s, right?
Yeah, my 20s.
Okay, early 20s. And now you're unemployed because this art of hand-drawn animation has just shrunk considerably.
Right. And then so the last little, right after Virtual Magic, I went to Creative Capers, and they were also doing the Tigger movie. And I got to do a little bit of cleanup actually on that, and a little bit of in-betweening on the Rabbit. And I'm a hardcore Don Bluth nerd as well, and so we made sure to use the Don Bluth Rabbit model sheets and try to keep up the integrity of the show, because they wanted to use the Disney TV models, which are more simplified models of our beloved Winnie the Pooh and Tigger. And so we were trying to keep up that kind of that feature quality and just hanging on with the thread. But then Toy Story 2 was out, and, Whispers of Monsters, Inc. And, the industry was just totally changing. And then before you know it, we were all competing for the same job. It was like a handful of jobs at Film Roman to get on King of the Hill or The Simpsons. And or Sony's Dilbert. If you didn't get on any of those shows, that's 3 shows, you didn't have a job. And it was sad.
Yeah. So you find yourself unemployed in your early 20s with this amazing resume. So what do you do, sir?
So being the hardcore Disney fan that I am, and also being I've always been fascinated with Imagineering. Walt Disney's always been one of my heroes. And, and Ward Kimball, I got to meet him because he lived near me. And he's one of the old nine men of Disney. And so I found myself at the Disneyland Resort.
You were a Disneyland cast member. And nothing against Disneyland cast members. Those are wonderful jobs. but that had to be a huge strike to your ego, I would assume.
At first, maybe a little bit, but at first it wasn't, because I felt like, I'm still with the Disney company.
But I mean, your paycheck must have been considerably different.
Yes, considerably. It was like minimum wage practically, like in comparison.
Yeah. So, okay. So you're working at Disneyland. What's like the first thing you're doing at Disneyland?
So I love the company so much, and I'm so loyal to them, right? So I'm so excited to be there.
Unless DreamWorks comes calling and James Baxter falls,
right.
then maybe not so much.
But he is the animator of Belle and Quasimodo and Rafiki.
I gotcha.
So then I'm out on Splash Mountain.
Okay, you're like ride operations for Splash Mountain.
Working in Critter Country on Splash Mountain, and then I also got to and then they had me work on the canoes in the river, and then I got to work on Pirates of the Caribbean, which I loved. And for me, I'm just such a nerd, like just to see the Mark Davis, the animatronics like up close, and the Mark Davis designs that he did up close, and to do walkthroughs, because I would check the animation in the morning, and I love that, like just walking around doing a walkthrough, checking all the animation for Splash Mountain. And also checking the animation for Pirates of the Caribbean. I love that stuff. And even for a mansion, just to see Mark Davis's portraits in the elevator, like that he actually hand painted himself up close, my mind was blown.
Yeah. So at this point, are you telling people, like your coworkers, your past with the company? And if so, are they believing you?
Yes and no. There's folks that did believe me. I'm like, and I took it as I'm in between jobs right now and the industry's down. So I'd rather work here than be somewhere else. But other people are like, yeah, right. No, you didn't. No, I worked on Hercules. No, you didn't. I worked on Space Jam. No, you didn't.
Oh man.
Yeah. So that and it took a while because at first I didn't even think that. And then after a while I was like, oh yeah, wait.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, you seem to have gone into it with a really positive attitude that, I mean, honestly, if it were me, I think I would have had a much more difficult time accepting that reality than you had. So, applause to you for keeping the dream alive.
Thank you. And I took it as an opportunity to learn as much as I can there. And look, to me, this was my first actually, that's not true. I was going to say it's my first real job, but it was kind of. I mean,
it kind of was as an adult adult, at 18 you were doing animation stuff. So anything else you had, like you were still a kid,
right? So it's kind of. So I was just taking in the opportunity, and then I moved up to like a trainer and a lead and all that stuff, and but really studying backstage, really starting to talk to some of the Imagineers that actually worked there. In the back, and then I would tell them, "Oh yeah, I worked, in the studio, blah blah blah," and then they believe me, and I'll talk with them. So I started meeting more and more people backstage, and doing like a walkthrough of Indiana Jones ride with all the effects on. That's awesome. That's priceless.
Awesome. And you were there for the opening of Disney California Adventure, right?
That's right, and I opened that animation building.
Okay, how ironic! Like. Really? You're opening the animation building, which I believe you said the exterior is designed by Eric Goldberg, right?
That's correct, yeah.
Okay, at one point you were like rubbing elbows with him in Walt Disney Animation Studios, and then you're working inside his building. Like that had to have been a trip for you.
Yeah, is that crazy? And then when I saw him, so when we had the opening of California Adventure, which, as you know, was a big flop. Those first 2 weeks where it was a bomb. But anytime people come through, I would like, Eric, can you draw something? Yeah, sure. Like, so Eric Goldberg drew something for us, and like Glenn Keane drew like Ariel for us and the Beast, and like any animator I'd see, I'd ask them to draw something. And then in the back, in our break room of the animation building, I started this Hall of Fame where I started putting up everybody's sketches.
Oh, I wonder if that's still there.
No, they had me take it down then because they thought it was kind of tacky.
Lame. That sounds very Disney, though.
Yeah, the operations manager's like, you can't. What do you think? You can't do that. And it's like, what?
Oh, all right. We have all these faux ones out in the lobby, but the real ones, sure, I'll take those down.
Oh, but this is the voice of Max, and he drew Goofy. And you're like,
that's so funny. That's so funny.
It's like, but this is Glenn Keane. Do you know who Glenn Keane is? They're like, they didn't care.
Amazing. So I'm curious. So in that in the lobby of that space, they have those amazing projection screens projecting all the different
beautiful
animation.
Beautiful.
As you were working in there, did you see any animation from stuff that you actually worked on? Were you seeing like Hercules stuff?
Oh yeah.
Wow.
Like, yeah, that's my shot. I painted that. Yeah, right.
I mean, like, seriously though.
Yeah, right, buddy.
You realize that's insane, right?
Yeah, that's crazy. And you know what's funny? Speaking of that, since we're really jamming the knife and pretty good.
Sorry, I'm so sorry. You're like, why did I come on here?
I think the most painful part for me was when I was teaching. So there was a how to draw the character at the time, Drawn to Animation.
The Animation Academy, yeah.
And before it was the Animation Academy, it was the Drawn to Animation show.
Okay.
Right? And they pretty much teach you how to draw Mushu. But the people do think those people in there are animators, but they're not. They're AGVA actors. And AGVA is a different union from SAG. Like
the American Guild of Variety Artists, yeah.
Yeah. So there's AGVA actors, and the most painful thing for me is when I was teaching the AGVA actors how to flip animation and to make it look like, they're an animator that knows how to flip animation, actually knows how to, draw.
Is that still true today? It's not artists?
No, it's now today, I don't know.
Okay. Because I'm gonna tell a story now that might break some people's hearts, but I'm looking right now on my wall. I have some really cool sketches of Disney villains. I have Jafar and Chernabog and Ursula and Frollo and Maleficent. And my mom used to get these for me for Christmas. I would get one each year, and I really love them. And they sell them in like the Off the Page store and at Walt Disney World, some equivalent of that.
Right.
And these are the ones that you would see the people in the store drawing. And, they just sell them, a matte version of that. And they're really nice and really cool. And I stopped collecting them one year because I watched somebody do it in the store and they were tracing it.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, no. I'm like, listen, I'm not dumb. I get that these aren't like the original artists doing them or something. But I'm like, they're tracing them, and it really kind of broke my heart.
Oh yeah,
and
they used to do the watch, because on Main Street there used to be the little store that they were doing it for the watches. Do you remember that? Yeah, they'd shrink it down for the watch face.
Yeah.
Yeah, I auditioned for that. I tried out for that job before I got into classics animation. I was so bummed.
Oh man,
face down to my navel, like. Ooh.
Well, you got the last laugh, didn't you?
I get it. Yeah.
Okay, so soon after that, folks, if you remember at the beginning of this episode and story, I said I met Matt. What would it have been? It would have been 14-ish years ago at this point. When I first moved to LA, one of my first jobs was I was a studio tour guide at Warner Brothers Studios. And that is where I initially met you. And I had no idea about your history. You were just a coworker to me. I assumed, you were on a similar path to me. I was 1,000% wrong. You were way more cool than me and further ahead than me.
No.
But you were working as a studio tour guide essentially at that time.
Yeah, and I loved every minute of it. I had so much fun.
All right.
With you guys.
I will say that there are
days. There's some tough days.
But the moment when you had a really great tour group who was really into it, it was the actual doing of that job was fun. Some of the behind the scenes stuff, not the most fun.
Not so much fun, but and you get tipped too.
So in any case, you're doing that, and this is where you really, you made some magic happen for yourself, and you got back into the industry with this leg in the door at Warner Brothers Studios. So tell folks this story.
So, we heard. Well, so first, I'm a huge animation nerd. And I even touched the Warner Brothers library working on Space Jam and the whole third act of Space Jam, and did a lot of Warner Brothers Target commercials, and painted Daffy Duck on the Drew Carey show, and painted Daffy Duck in the McDonald's Super Space Jam commercial. And so I would tell those stories also with the tours, and really always find a way to get animation in there, and especially when we go to the museum and look at the cells. My tour groups always would get an animation lesson, always, every time, because of my love for it and for Chuck Jones. And so then I found out that Warner Brothers Animation was moving from the Sherman Oaks Galleria, where they did Animaniacs and they did Batman the Animated Series and all that good stuff. They were moving to the ranch property. And for those of you that don't know, the ranch property is like right down the street from the actual Warner Brothers lot. And on that lot is the Friends Fountain.
Not anymore, but originally, yes.
Yes.
They moved it. Did you know that?
They moved it? Where did they move it
It's
to?
on the main lot.
No.
Oh, I'll tell you the story. I don't think the reasoning is all public knowledge at this point, so I'll tell you after. But
okay.
Yeah.
I have some
crazy.
ideas. There I am. Okay, so wow. Well, so then also the Christmas Vacation house is
National
there.
Lampoon's Christmas Vacation. Hocus Pocus. In fact, you see the Friends Fountain in Hocus Pocus in the background of a shot.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
And Small Soldiers, that house is right there too.
Yep. There's a lot of great stuff there. The Middle on ABC shot
The
there.
Middle, yeah.
It's a great lot.
I have a friend who's a production manager on that show. And so I found out that they're moving from Sherman Oaks to the ranch. So excited. What? Animation's coming, like Animation Studios moving from Sherman Oaks to the ranch. Like, what? And again, I'm talking to people like on the lot, and when I'm driving around our boss Danny's golf cart around, and talking to people. And so I was able to, as the dispatcher of the tour department, we kind of coordinated with other friends. My interview, so I landed an interview with Linda Steiner and Sam Register at Warner Brothers Animation, but it was like slap dab right in the middle of my shift. And it came up suddenly. So I had to coordinate with the other drivers and the other tour guides to be able to drop me off and have me change into my suit, do my interview, and then pick me up and then come back and then go back and do a tour. So like, it was crazy. And then do a tour and come back, which was awesome.
And you end up getting the job and working on, I believe, Batman Brave and the Bold, right?
Correct. Yeah.
And is you still ink and paint at this point, or is it a different position?
So now I saw an opportunity to get back into the business, but in the side of production management.
Okay.
And with the hopes of, maybe be on the trajectory to become a producer.
Okay. Now I'm going to fast forward a little bit here because your resume is insane, but you end up going from, WB Tours to the WB Animation, then back to DreamWorks to work on things like Monsters vs. Aliens and Kung Fu Panda 2. Is that correct?
Yep.
Okay. Now you end up back after that, back at Walt Disney Animation Studios.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. About 10 years later.
That's crazy. So from Walt Disney Animation Studios to Disneyland cast member to Walt Disney Animation Studios, you're a win, man. Yes. This is a happy ending.
And for people, and people should know that when you work for the company and when you work for the Walt Disney Company, it is the Walt Disney Company. So whatever your performance is, whether you work as a cast member, it transfers over. So if you,
as far as your records, yeah, right.
Right. So if you're trying to later on. Exactly. If you're trying to then try to get into Industrial Light and Magic or Pixar or Disney Feature Animation
or ABC or Lucasfilm or Marvel, like if you're on the blacklist for the Walt Disney Company, you are on the blacklist for a ton of companies. It's crazy.
And I saw that happen to some artists too. Like they just thought nothing of their job, as a cast member at the parks, but it does count. It does count.
Yeah.
So thank God here I am back. Boom. And I'm in the Disney Feature building. Now it's considered the old building. It's the old South Side building. And I was in it when it was brand new.
That's so crazy. I love it. And you're working on movies like?
So my first movie back was on Wreck-It Ralph.
Alrighty. And what position are you there?
So I was a PA, production assistant, for the Sweatbox department.
All right. Ooh,
and I had a blast. I loved it. Oh, I loved every minute of it. I was building playlists, and then we'd go to the main big theater, and then I would pretty much drive our sequences that we're looking at for Rich Moore and sometimes John Lasseter and Ed Catmull and all the department heads there. And then we would all, then give notes.
All right. So Wreck-It Ralph followed by?
Frozen, a little film called Frozen.
Frozen. So you did work on Frozen, same position? Or
So it was a production assistant in the effects department.
Okay.
So here's a crazy thing. So now our effects department was no joke. Where they put my desk, it was in the old ink and paint department.
That's so funny.
So here I am, and I'm just like, this is crazy. Like
this story is insane. This is why I wanted you on the podcast. Like, it's the most literal sense of the word unbelievable. This is unbelievable.
And while we're working on, I'm walking around my artists, my effects animators, and like one of my friend Chris, like he was doing like the snow boxes, which is all the snow for Elsa and for Frozen, and the other guys doing like the pillars and stuff for the castle build sequence and Let It Go, and then I would sometimes I'll be honest, I'll daydream and be like, wow, and I would remember back when I was sitting in that same exact room when it was the ink and paint department. And when there was a big Walt Disney poster up on the wall, and you had a legend like Carmen Sanders, ink and painter, sitting there, and many others that all painted on everything that we know and love from Disney animation, just blew me away.
So wild. Now, tell me, when you were making Frozen, was there any inkling of the hit that was going to become? Did it feel like the beginning of a new renaissance for you guys?
So for me, it did. I was like, this might be it. Like, this can possibly win an Oscar, And at that time, I was in a musical improv troupe at IO and at Upright Citizens Brigade, and I would tell them, and we're musical improv, and I'd always tell them, like, no, musicals are going to come back. Like, and they love musicals, but the funny thing is that the company wanted to keep it a secret that Frozen was a musical because they felt that the American audience was not ready for a musical, and it's like, they're ready. We're ready.
I remember that. Ready. Now that you mention it, what was it that made you think it was going to be a hit? Was it the music that you were like, oh, it's time?
So I'll be honest with you. At first, when I first heard Idina Menzel's First Pass, I was like, no, I want off this movie. And when I first saw the design of Olaf, I was like,
love that
I want off this movie. And then I would look down the hall, the effects guys, and they're working on this new secret film called Big Hero 6 at the time, and doing like all this cool robot stuff and development stuff and like effects stuff for Big Hero 6. And like, yeah, John Romita Jr. at the time, famous Marvel comic book artist and does the Iron Man Marvel comics. He did some of the first pass of visual development for Big Hero 6. And I was like, oh, I'm geeking out. I'm like, oh, I want to be on Big Hero 6 so bad. Get me off. As I'm pinning up for Dan Lund the different versions of Elsa's dress for her transformation sequence. So there was, at that point, I was like, oh, man, I don't know about this movie.
And what changed it for you?
Once we really started getting into the story, and I think when the villain was hidden, and as it just started to evolve, and then hearing, Bobby and Christy Lopez's like scratch coming in, and then it starting to hearing that build. Mm-hmm. And then again, like I told you, I heard Idina's First Pass, and I was just like, oh no, and they had a talk with her, and then later on, she just came back, and it was just like, oh my gosh. And then I was working on the Let It Go sequence. And it was crazy. Oh, let me tell you a little story. And so in Dailies, in Olaf's song, in Olaf's sequence, there was a shot where he has his little arms behind his head, and he's
like laying on his back. Yeah,
it's like letting off steam. Right?
Are you Steam? Are you the Steam guy or something?
So every time when you say steam, and there was no steam at the time because we're the effects department, we're going to put the steam in. But every time, even if John Lasseter was in there or any of the big department heads like or Lino. From the head of animation at that time too. All the guys that were in there were in the dark watching this. And it started once and then it became almost a tradition. But every time in the dark, we're just looking at the rough, not lit Olaf going, letting off steam. Every time I went, the whole crowd went down laughing.
Keeping it classy.
Yeah, classy. Yeah.
Nice.
Okay, animation, you have to throw one fart joke in. I'm sorry.
So after Frozen, did you head to Disney TV after that? TV animation?
So after Frozen, I was at Disney TV Animation on Jake and the Neverland Pirates.
How did that transition happen for you? Was that your choice?
Well, I kind of didn't want to be like, I wanted to explore it because at this point, I've been in CG for quite a few years now. Okay. And I had it under my belt, and I kind of like, well, and I've been in lighting before, and it looked like that's probably where I was headed, probably into a lighting position, which maybe I should have taken it. But at that time, I didn't really feel that was for me, and I kind of wanted to try something new.
Cool. And so what did you do on Jake and the Neverland Pirates?
So I was assistant. I was an assistant to the producer.
Oh, cool.
So again, trying to get like more producer stuff under my belt, and working with them was great. And then from there, I went on to this company called Mousetrap.
Okay, so now this I really find fascinating because you leave, back to Walt Disney Animation Studios, then to Disney Television Animation, and then to Mousetrap. Once again, outsourced work for Imagineering now. And tell the folks about what you did for Disney's Animal Kingdom.
So for Disney Animal Kingdom, there's a show with the Tree of Life. And that show, and now it comes to all 300 animals that were sculpted originally on that tree back in the 90s, all comes to life and tells a story. And there's 6 shorts that we did as one long shot that was laser projected onto the tree.
Yeah, so you did all of that incredible projection mapping on the Tree of Life, which projection mapping these days is, we've gotten to a point where I feel like it's kind of overused, I would say, but I think the Tree of Life is some of my absolute favorite, just because I can't believe how well it works. Like, on Cinderella Castle, you've got some flat surfaces and such to play with, whereas on the Tree of Life, there's nothing flat. And so the fact that anything can be projected on that and make it believably move blows my mind. It's some of my absolute favorite projection mapping.
Wow. Thank you very much. Well, yeah, and we were so excited with the new laser, like volumetric laser projection. We were whoa, this looks crazy. Like, it's amazing. So we're like, how can we utilize the tree canopy? And then we're like, what if we made it, into what, like, water starts filling up, flooding and filling up the tree to tell the next story. And, also too, like, at this time, all the top Imagineers, and maybe this is how I got in there, but all the top Imagineers and everyone and their mama that were in there and who were like seniors and had the choice to work on what they wanted, were all going on to the new Star Wars project at the time.
Oh, okay. I thought you were going to say Pandora, but it was Star Wars.
It was all Star Wars. So it's kind of like, okay, well, who do we have left to do the other stuff? So, but I loved it. I loved every minute of it. And getting in there, it was all out of the box, even setting up. There's a tracking software called Shotgun. It was out of the box. And so we had to put in all the pipeline steps ourselves. And I got to work with the director, Dick Zondag, who was an animator on Meet the Robinsons. But he directed We're Back.
Oh, a dinosaur story. Yep.
So what was also pretty amazing was that Mousetrap gave us freedom and trusted us. And even though, production, between quotes, but it was more than production. I almost did feel more like a little bit of a creative producer, because I was also helping hire, the folks that would come in and work with Dick on the story. And I even assisted him on the story, actually. And color, and I also painted some stuff, like a little bit, kind of got some of my ink and paint, mileage in there a little bit for Dick. And then so then the big challenge was, and I was geeking out because, like, when they first, I've seen the Imagineering model of the tree before.
Yeah.
Long time ago. And for some reason, I thought that this would be the model to use, right? So we had to go through all these obstacles to get to the tree. And then to find out that this model is all broken and chipped and just doesn't have enough detail on it for us. So we had to hire a modeler to come in, and we had a photographer go out to the park, take super detailed pictures of the tree. And then we replicated the tree in CG to then, with all 300 animals carved into it, modeled into it, so then we can break them out later and then rig them to be able to animate. But also, we printed out the tree. They 3D printed the tree 6 feet by 3 feet wide to then do our mini projections on it for the art directors from Disney to check, make sure it's good, and then move on to installation.
Now, did you go to Disney's Animal Kingdom for installation, or was your job done by that point? No,
we weren't allowed to. No, we stayed in Burbank.
So from what I know, that was your last job or most recent job for Disney, right?
Yes.
Okay, so why don't you let folks know before we wrap things up what you're working on these days?
So I'll go real fast. So after that, because of my 3D printing kind of knowledge and getting into that and tracking that, I went on to Leica and worked on Kubo and the Two Strings, and which was created by Shannon Tyndall, which is exciting.
That's stop motion stuff, right?
Yeah. Stop motion, which is phenomenal, which was amazing. And the head of the modeling department was, I forgot his name, but he was the baby in Labyrinth.
Oh,
How crazy is
really?
that?
That's so funny.
But
that's like that's like you saying you did all these animation things at Disneyland, and people are like, no, you didn't. No,
you didn't.
no, you weren't.
No, you didn't.
You're not the baby. That's
and
funny.
then he dressed up as the baby once for Halloween. But anyways,
that's amazing.
So, and then Missing Link, and then came back to DreamWorks, and then worked on Harvey Street Kids for Netflix, and then worked on Cleopatra in Space, which is now on Peacock. And then now I'm currently at Netflix. I just wrapped up a show called Centaur World, which is absolutely amazing. I did 2 seasons and a feature. And I just wrapped up that show today. And then next Tuesday, I start on an unannounced top secret feature that I'm so excited about.
Unbelievable. True.
And head of animation of Netflix is James Baxter.
Is it really?
Yep.
Oh, I didn't realize that. That's so funny. Man, he's going to get like a restraining order against you or something.
Yeah, I know, right?
This kid won't stop following me.
Just recently, it was funny because he came by. So when I was working on Centaur World, and he came by my desk, this was before COVID, obviously, and I had my animation cell of Quasimodo.
Oh.
And then he was talking to me. I'm like, hey, this might sound really weird. I know I've known you for a long time. I painted your scenes of Moses and Zipporah on Prince of Egypt, but you think you could sign my Quasimodo? And he's like, dude, of course. So he signed my cell, which is pretty cool.
That's awesome. Very cool.
Yes.
Well, I'm so happy for you. It's such an amazing journey. And sincerely, thank you for coming on here and telling folks about it because, I know there are certain parts of that story that you don't probably want to relive, but I think it's a really great thing for people to hear, just all sides and facets of this insane industry. And
anything is possible. And let me tell you, from all 20 years being in the business, that now at Netflix, I feel like every cool, nice person I've ever rubbed elbows with and come across and laughed with in the hallways, we're all at Netflix right now. And it's an amazing experience.
Netflix is the thing. Like, that's where everybody's trying to go right now. I know a lot of people jumping ship from a lot of companies trying to get in at Netflix. So they know what they're doing. They certainly know what they're doing. But in any case, folks, let's get to some trivia.
Do you know the answer? Get your brain gears churning and play along. It's trivia time.
Alrighty, Matt, do you want to hit me with the trivia question first, or shall I hit you?
I'll hit you.
Okay,
you
let's
probably
hear
know
it.
I'm sure you probably know it.
It doesn't matter as long as it's interesting.
Well, what was Ward Kimball's band's name?
Oh, I think you mentioned it. The Firehouse 5+2, right?
That's correct. That's correct.
Now, how was that created? Right? This was back in Walt's lifetime. Did they actually perform at Disneyland or something? I actually don't know much about their history.
Absolutely. Yeah. Actually, 1955 opening day, they performed in the Firehouse.
That's so funny.
Yeah. And it's Ward Kimball, Frank Thomas on piano.
Wow.
Yeah, you know Frank and Ollie?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, what a weird group of people he had working there. I love it. A lot of musicians. Even through the decades, I see a lot of like those behind the scenes videos, and it always feels like there's somebody playing musical instruments. It just feels like.
And they have a great album that's live from the Golden Horseshoe, which is really cool.
Oh, wow. So, yeah, I have heard of that. Yeah, I don't know enough about their history. I may have to look into that sometime.
Yeah. I love them. And it was all animators. And one of the guys designed the Nautilus from 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea. Like, it was all these fantastic artists. And Ward Kimball in his garage had the fire truck, which is on one of the covers of their albums. And he had all their fire hats.
Oh, that's cool. Because he was your neighbor, right?
Yeah, he was my neighbor. And he would point him out and be like, okay, that fire hat, he's dead. He's alive. At the time, Frank Thomas was alive.
Well, he had a sense of humor about it, I guess. Alrighty, my trivia question for you.
Yeah.
We were talking a little bit earlier how you did a little bit of work on Mulan, working on Mushu, but most of that was actually made at the animation building inside Disney MGM Studios theme park.
Correct.
And my question for you is, aside from Mulan, what were the 2 other Walt Disney Animation features that were primarily made at Disney MGM Studios?
Oh my goodness. Features, not shorts?
Features. Yep.
Features. Because I know John Henry was one, but that's a short. Oh my god. Nah, you mean the whole entire thing? Because all of Lilo and Stitch was done there.
Majority.
So Lilo and Stitch is one.
Lilo and Stitch is one, yep. Any guess on the other?
Was it Treasure? Was it?
No, it wasn't, but I'm thinking of giving you a clue, and I think this is right. Phil Collins, once again, I believe.
Oh, maybe. No, most of Tarzan was done.
Not Tarzan.
Oh, okay.
I think he
Brother
did
Bear. I knew it.
Brother Bear.
I was going to say that. Yeah, Brother Bear.
Yeah, so Mulan, Lilo and Stitch, and Brother Bear were the 3 Walt Disney Animation features primarily made at Disney MGM Studios back when they had the whole animation thing.
And if there's any Brother Bear fans out there, be sure to look up Aaron Blaise. And especially if you're an art fan, like Aaron Blaise is always selling artwork, and he's one of the animators in Brother Bear. He's a phenomenal artist, and watch his YouTube videos.
Fantastic. And speaking of plugs, anything you want to plug before we get out of here? Any social media or websites or anything?
Be sure to watch Centaur World when it comes on Netflix next year. And also Cleopatra in Space on Peacock, if you have that app. And Harvey Street Kids, which is currently on Netflix. And hey, watch Hercules again on Disney Plus. Why not?
Do it. Awesome. Well, Matt, thanks so much. This has been awesome.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you so much.
Now, folks, if you missed last Wednesday's episode of DCTC, be sure to check it out as we celebrated the 30th anniversary of the Disney Afternoon. As you heard in today's interview, my guest Matt worked on some of the Disney Afternoon shows. And don't forget that you can hear the latest Disney news every Sunday in the House of Mouse headlines. The easiest way to make sure you don't miss any of the magic is by subscribing to Disney Coast to Coast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen to podcasts. Wherever you search, don't forget, it's Disney with a Z, Coast to Coast. And before we go, I want to give a shout out to the newest member of the DCTC community, Mayodi Starlight. Thank you so much, Mayodi, for visiting patreon.com/DisneyCTC and supporting the show while earning bonuses. If you'd like to join the DCTC community as well, simply visit patreon.com/DIZNEYCTC. The show is ending right now, so there's no better time to check it out. You can find a link in this episode's description. Other than that, folks, have a magical day. Bye!
Thanks for listening to Disney Coast to Coast. Have a magical day.
Disney Coast to Coast is produced and hosted by Jeff DePauli. Learn more about the podcast and become a supporter at DisneyCoastToCoast.com.